daughter Jillian couldn't be here tonight. She wasn't feeling well, and the grandkids are studying for tests at Mary Hardin Baylor. But I told my daughter about this invitation, and she said, "Now, Dad, be cautious." And so I decided to let her look over my notes yesterday and take out anything that would be inappropriate or silly or not funny. So in conclusion, happy birthday, Wanda. I was recently reading some poetry from a great poet, and when I wrote this poem, let me read it to you. It's for you, Wanda, on this special occasion. If you can keep your wits when all around is going wrong, if you can stay in tune and keep singing your sweet song, if you keep your heavenly grace when the world leans toward hell, if you can still be patient when all's not going well, when folks are mean or rude or cruel, if you can just press on and make your way through darkness to greet another dawn, if you get knocked down to the floor, but get up one more time and look up and on and just wipe off the grime, if you can take just one more step when strength is almost spent, when others relish in their sins, if you choose to repent, if you can make it just one more day when success seems overdue, and have your head examined, friend, there's something wrong with you. Now, that didn't end like you thought it was going to end. But that's life. Life doesn't always end or go like we want it. That's why we need the Lord. Amen. You're getting older. It's sweeter and better, I'm sure. I hadn't asked your husband about that, but I'm a little late. You know you're getting old when they put just that one candle on your cake, as if to say, see if you can blow that out. Life and getting older is kind of like a roll of toilet paper. The closer it gets to the end, the faster it goes.
Yeah, boy.
So far, this is the oldest you've been.
Yep.
Sometimes, I don't know if you've had this experience yet at age 50, but you go into a room and you forget why you went in there. But this morning, I went into a room and I actually remembered. Okay, it was a restroom, but I remembered why I went in there. As you guys get older, like your mom and dad have gotten older and married all these years, and you find out you really need each other, and you become one over and more and more and more. And if you're divorced or if you've lost your spouse in death or something, it makes it more difficult because spouses need each other, mainly because one normally, you see them walking together in the mall holding hands, mainly it's because she has one good right leg and he's got one good left leg, and they're not just falling in love, they're walking to make sure they can keep walking. She can hear, he can see. That's going to be y'all. Now, I know you help ladies with their hair and beauty, or help them find beauty, or you got to search for beauty and give them a little beauty or something. This 91-year-old lady was just finishing up someone doing her hair and having it shaped and everything, and the stylist said, 91 years, the stylist said to her, "You just look 10 years younger." He said, "Why do I want to be 81 again?" The lady wanted $100 from her husband to go to the beauty shop. He looked at her and gave her $300. Wow. And then she came back home from the salon, and he said, "Well, at least they tried." Keith, that wasn't you, Keith. Sorry, that wasn't you. So Certainly some women come in your shop and you don't say it out loud, but inside you're going, Lord help me. I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. What can I do? What step can I take? What can I use? We're going to have a miracle here. We need a miracle. But that's how the Lord is with us. We come to Him ugly and He fixes us up. Back during all this corona stuff this last couple of years, I saw a post. It said nail salons closed, hair salons closed, eyelash salons closed. It ended the sentence with, it's about to get real ugly out there. And yesterday, $50,000 worth of hair extensions was stolen from a local hair salon. $50,000 worth of hair extensions. Police are still combing the area for police. It's not going to get any better than that one. Mother, did you get that one back there? All right. Now they say 40 is the new 30, and that means 50 is the new 40. But all I know as I get older is 9 o'clock's the new midnight. And I want to tell you something. I read something the other day. Is that 2 out of every 3 people, 2 out of every 3 people have a serious psychological problem. Look at the person on your left, and look at the person on your right. If they look okay, it might be you. Elaine, as you're getting older, even past 50, just remember, never take a sleeping pill and a laxative on the same night. Now, growing up, my family was humorous. We enjoyed laughing, even we laughed at each other. My hometown is 508 people, a little town called Frost, up near Hillsboro in Corsicana, Texas. And there was 13 in my graduating class, but because I was 3rd in class, I was in the upper 4th of the class, and that's how I got into Baylor on probation. Baylor University. I grew up mostly about 11 miles south of that small town in a little area called Brushy Prairie. And as a young child, I was a chicken turner. I don't know if you've ever had to do this, but that's what he called me. He said, Tony, you're the chicken turner. What happened was, a big wind came up and blew our hen house away, and the chickens started roosting on the well. And my dad put me in charge of keeping them things turned in the right direction. I don't know. People thought I did okay, but not many people wanted to drink water from our Now, at a young age, I was influenced by, I'm going to list some names that some of you young people have no idea unless you do a YouTube search. Jack Benny, Jonathan Winters, Jerry Lewis, Red Skelton, and I'm leaving out a bunch of every kind of race imaginable. Clean humor, good humor, everyday things that were funny. In the 1st grade, I was already fond of Red Skelton. And I could do all of his jokes. He had two bald eagles named Gertrude and Heathcliff. And he was like that. And so Gertrude said to Heathcliff, guess what happened today? He said, I don't know. She said, I laid a square egg. He said, well, what do you think's going to happen with that? I'm going to have a square eagle. Now see, that's not a funny thing, but for us kids, it was funny. So I'm doing these Red Skelton jokes in front of my 1st grade teacher, and she takes me down to the superintendent's office to do a little show for him. And then he said, at 1 o'clock we're having an assembly at school, and you're going to do some of those jokes there. So I'm up there flapping my wings, I'm Red Skelton. But I got in trouble a little bit with Jack Benny, because of Jack Benny. See, Jack Benny had a deal where he would, if he got disgusted, he put his hand on his cheek like this in disgust. Well, I was at a football game. I was probably 7, 8, and of course I had watched a lot of Jack Benny and George Burns, and so I'm walking along in front of the bleachers. My mom and dad are sitting there at the ball game outside, at the stadium, and the superintendent was sitting by them. So my dad said, Tony, come up here and say hello to Mr. Newsom. Now I didn't know that Mr. Newsom had on his finger here a little ring that he wound up, and when you shook hands with somebody, it buzzed you like an electrical shock. And so Mr. Nixon says, hey, Tony, come up here. And so he puts his hand out, and we shake hands, and you know, it kind of startled him. But here's what I did. I didn't laugh. I didn't jump up and down or anything. I just went, and then I ran off. But when I got home, my dad said, Tony, you embarrassed your mother and me. That's some kind of stupid look you gave when that ring buzzed you. You didn't even say anything to Mr. Newsom about that being funny. I said, Dad, it wasn't me. I was Jack Benny. I was Jack Benny. Dad didn't get it. Another time I got in trouble, a circus came to town. I was about 8 years old, had a big tent, and in our little town had a big tent. There was a real good magician one night. I almost said musician, good magician, and we were watching him, and all of a sudden he wanted to volunteer. Well, I threw my hand up. He said, young man, come here. So I went there, and he said, I'm going to make a ball go through this young man's head and pop out of his mouth. I thought, that's interesting. And so he'd already done some fantastic stuff, as best I remember. And so he spins me around 3 times, and when I spun around the 3rd time, he pops this ball into my mouth and said, when I slap you on the back of the neck, blow that thing out. So he says, abracadabra, and boop, I spit the ball out. There it was. Everybody applauded. Wow. So we got home. Dad said, baby, he called me baby a lot. I said, baby, that guy he was good. It looked just like that ball came out of your mouth. I said, well, Dad, it did. Here's that ball was in your mouth. You don't know how many other mouths that thing's been in. You don't know what kind of jerk. What was I going to do? Tell the guy I'm not going to do it? Dad and I were driving around one day in the country, just driving around there, and we came right up on a chicken. It was fast. We doing 50 miles an hour, we couldn't keep up with it. We noticed it had 3 legs. 3 legs on this chicken. And so it just darted off and went right into a gate and then up by a barn where there was a man standing. He was a farmer there that owned the place. My dad said, you see a 3-legged chicken running here? The guy said, yeah, I raise them here. I breed them here. Dad said, really? He said, well, my wife loves chicken legs. I love chicken legs, and my big old boy, Junior, loves chicken legs, and so I just bred them to have 3 legs. And Dad said, well, boy, do they taste pretty good? He said, I don't know, we never catch one. Now, I'm going to take y'all back a little bit in your memory, you old folks. Y'all remember way, way back, you'd be sitting at home some night, evening, 7, 8, and there'd be a knock on your door, or the doorbell would ring. Everybody jumped up. Wonder who that is. Who is it? You'd open the door. What are y'all doing here? Oh, we just in the neighborhood. Thought we'd come by and see how the kids are doing. Your mom would ask them if come on in. Your mom would say, do y'all want some coffee? Want some Sanka? Something to drink? And she had a piece of pound cake. Mom she bought a pound cake in a little tin, and she kept it there on the. She told us to keep our grubby hands off of it. Is what she told us. It's for company. That's what you call that then. That's company. Right. Mm-hmm. And we'd sit around talking, and finally an hour or 2 would go by, and you go, man, look, we've had a wonderful time. And so look, y'all come over anytime, but next time we'll come over to your house and have some fun like this. Nowadays, when your doorbell rings, everybody get down. Did you invite anybody over? Did you invite anybody over? Everybody get down. Be quiet. Be quiet. Don't make a sound. Johnny, go get my 38 from under the bed. You got to tell people that you're coming over nowadays. That's right. That's right. Even way back there, remember the grocery stores where you had your basket full, and you went right up there, and they typed in the price on the little cash registers, and everybody's friendly. You don't see that much now because what they've done, these businesses today have simply said, we're done with you. They've given up. Self-service. You do it. I try that sometimes. I've not gone through a training course on that self-service machine. I got up at 2 a.m. one time. I went up there and started practicing with some stuff, and I started memorizing codes. Bananas is 40 4011, that's bananas if you can't find it. And cilantro is 4889 if you need that one, if you ever get stumped on that kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? And so I would do that. But even in a regular line, even before self-service, using a regular line, if an item didn't scan or they didn't have a price on it, I didn't want to bother anybody. So I said, I don't need it. T-bone steak, I don't need it. But a lot of times, they would, you had a little checker guy that put the groceries in the bag. They just say, and the checker would go, Timmy, come here a second. Timmy, would you run back and see what the price of this item is? Timmy doesn't even know he's there hardly. If he leaves, he's not coming back. I don't want the item. I don't want the item. Then you get in one of those lines, everybody's in line, and all of a sudden you're wondering, why is this taking so long? You look up there, this lady got coupons. How did I get in this line? Then you see a guy who's got 3 items and said, this won't take long, and then he says, can I get a pack of Marlboro? Now they got to go over to the cigarette jail. That takes another 30 minutes to find out which one. No, not that one with no filter, all that kind of stuff. Then you see a lady up there, she's checking out, they got her groceries done, and then she pulls out a checkbook. Who pays with groceries with a checkbook? But it's a system, though. First, it's this in her purse. Could I make this out too? It's on the lady's apron. It's on the bill up here. It's called WALMART, Walmart. That's who you're looking at too. We've been cooped up for a couple of months, and I saw a lady look like it was her first time to get out in public at Subway the other day. She walks up to the counter and is like, how does this work? You pick the bread. What do you do at home? You pick the bread. You don't just throw a turkey out on the table and then get a fork. You pick the bread, then you pick the meat. Then you come to these condiments. And she's like, okay, I want tomatoes on mine, but not that one right there, the third one under, just over there with the other side. Yeah, that one is, it's not like picking a puppy out of a basket. Then she says, I don't want any cucumbers or any lettuce or anything. Can you just substitute a little bit of turkey for all that? It don't work that way. The profit on a sandwich is a nickel. You can't trade off no veggies for an extra piece of turkey. I just tell them a simple thing when I look at the condiments. I just tell them, send it through the garden. Send my sandwich through the garden. I don't want to trouble anybody. There's enough strange people in the world. I was approached last week by a man collecting money for the family of the unknown soldier. I gave him both. Also, I found out this week I had a high school classmate that died, and I think I might be responsible. You tell me. I hope it's not me that was responsible. I know it was my 6th birthday. We had a cake, and Mom lit the candles, and he just jumped over and blew them out. I was kind of upset, crying a little bit. Mom said, don't worry about it, Tony. We'll just relight the candles, you make a wish, and blow the candles out. So I made him a wish, and I blew the candles out. And all these years later, he finally died. Be careful what you wish. When I was in Little League, our teams were sponsored by local businesses. Put their names on the jerseys like Joe's Cleaners, Johnson Pharmacy. We were Nelson Funeral Home. We were the Nelson Embalmers. In our group photo, there wasn't one child smiling. We were driven to games in the hearse. And it seemed a strange thing to me when the coach would yell out, y'all look alive out there. Another thing that I wonder about is why all these young people. If you're young, if you're like 0 up to 20, raise your hand. I see Rose over there already. Yeah, I see a few of you women telling untruth. Why is all this concentration on you young people drinking energy drinks all the time? All this Red Bull stuff. Why do y'all need the extra energy? Where those Red Bulls ought to go to the nursing home. Ought to be a dispenser of Red Bulls in the nursing home. Wouldn't that beef up a bingo game at the nursing home? Gladys, I had B1 before you did. Parents sometimes will say to a child, "You sound like a broken record." They have no idea what we're saying. Because there's been no records that they've grown up with. Why are they so sleepy all the time? Why do they need the energy drinks? They don't even know that TV used to stop at midnight. Stopped at midnight. We didn't pay nothing for it. You had 5 or 6, maybe 2 or 3 channels. One that was colored, the rest you had to improvise. And at midnight, you heard, or you heard that guy do that little thing that he wrote, "Oh, I've slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced to the..." It was done, and you went to bed at midnight. And if you are a kid and were awake much at midnight, you had that whole poem, you had that thing memorized. Now the TV never shuts off. We actually had to put a deal out to tell kids, you cannot text 911. You got to call 911. In an emergency, you can't just text 911. OMG, I think there's a burglar in my house. And our phones were on the walls. Remember that? They were the rotary phones. If you missed dialing, you missed the last number, you had to dial the whole And you had a party line. We didn't have a phone for a while. We had party lines. And then if it rang once, it was us. If it rang twice, it was a neighbor. If 3 times, it was another neighbor. But we all answered the phone. It didn't matter how many rings it was. We listened in. I can hear my mom many times. I think that's Reba. She's up. Well, is that you, Reba? On the other line. She wanted Reba to hang up, so she wanted to do it. And if the phone rang and you couldn't get to it, then you had to call all your friends and go, "Hey, did you call me? Did you call me? Did you call me?" And then the very interesting thing, too, is we had the phone numbers in our head. If I lost my phone today, there is nobody I could call. Nobody I could call. Y'all don't even know we used to not have air conditioning. The cars didn't have air conditioning. Sometimes, though, you had a car without air conditioning, you'd drive around with your windows up in summertime just so folks would think you did have air conditioning. Now, I promised Mother I was going to tell this one because I told her one time she liked this, and there was this old couple that couldn't remember things. They were having difficulty remembering things, and so the doctor said, "Why don't you just make notes?" I said, "Okay." So one night they're sitting about 8 o'clock, they're sitting in the living room, and he gets up like he's going to the kitchen. She says, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to get me some ice cream." She said, "I want some too." He said, "All right, you want some vanilla ice cream?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Make a note or you'll forget it." He said, "No, I remember." She said, "Well, I want some whipped cream on it." "Whipped cream, okay, vanilla ice cream, whipped cream." She said, "Are you going to make a note?" "I'll remember it." He said, "Well, I want some strawberries on top." "Are you going to make a note?" "No, I'll remember it." So he's gone a few minutes. He comes back in with a plate for her of fried eggs and bacon. She said, "I told you I wanted scrambles." That's for you, Mother. Now, as you live and learn everything, be careful what you say, how fast you talk. There was a preacher one time who was doing the wedding ceremony. He said, "Bob, you take Sally to be your awfully wedded wife." You say these vows so long that you don't really know what you're saying, so you can say, right, "Nancy, do you take Robert to be your lawfully wedded wolf?" In the Methodist communion ritual, there's a statement in there that says, "All of you who intend to lead a new life, draw near with faith." all of you who intend to lead a new life, draw near with faith. They told the preacher right after the service, what he had said was, all of you who tend to need a lewd wife. Now, our pastor was Pastor Hogue, and Brother Hogue one time was telling somebody something about a guy who was collecting arrowheads, but what he said was he was collecting Indian heads. And I thought that was a funny thing. And then he had a new suit on his birthday at church one Sunday, and he told everybody he wanted everybody to see him in his birthday suit. And I understood what he meant, but now, I went into the Methodist ministry in 1972, and I was a new pastor, and I was visiting, and I went to this old lady's house, and she and I were talking quite a bit, and I was having a good visit, but I was nervous as a young pastor. I was peanuts in a little dish over here, and I just eating my peanuts and nervous, and we were talking, and finally I said, I've had a wonderful visit with you, and before we have a prayer, I want to apologize for eating all your peanuts. She said, preacher, I eat peanuts. I just sucked the chocolate off of them. And my first wedding that I did, I didn't know the dad of the bride was nervous. And he had a certain accent. I think he might have been German. But I worked with him at the rehearsal that, who gives this woman to be married to this man? And he's supposed to say, her mother and I. Well, I worked with him. But we got to the wedding, and I said, who gives this woman to be married to this man? And there was silence. And I looked at her, and I looked at him, and I said it again. Who gives this woman to be married to this man? And he looked dead in my eyes. He went, my mother and my father. That actually happened. At that same wedding, I said, if anybody objects to this couple being married, let them now speak or forever hold their peace. Boom! There was a loud thing of thunder. And they're still married today with 4 kids and a bunch of grandkids. In that same church, a lady's husband died, and I went to the house. The house was very crowded. People were bringing food and all that. And so we needed a private place to talk. And so since every other room was filled, she suggested we just go into the bathroom, and we could have privacy there. And so she sat down on the side of the tub, and I sat down. Well, the only other seat that was there was the john. I sat down on the john. We talked and got the hymns that she wanted, and then had a prayer with her, and we stood up. And as she opened the door, my natural instinct was to reach back and touch that lever. So as she was opening the door, all everybody heard on the outside was, a fellow was walking along the beach and saw a goblet in the sand. Started rubbing it off, and like many other stories you've heard, a genie popped up. Said, I'll give you 3 wishes. But whatever you get, whatever you wish for, your mother-in-law is going to get twice as much. He said, okay. He said, I want a huge mansion on the hill. Boom, there was his mansion. Boom, boom, there was 2 mansions for her. He said, I want $10 million in the bank. Boom, it was in his checking account. Boom, boom, she had $20 million. What do you want for your 3rd wish? He said, well, my mother-in-law is we're in her will. Just beat me half to death. Now, in closing, what a preacher says in closing, there's a few more minutes, but in closing, as I get older, it seems that I get bothered by certain things that people do. The phrases that we use rather than just coming to the point. Like, for instance, worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is the car engine may not make it to Florida. No, worst case scenario could be it's not going to make it to Florida, but a hurricane is. I can always think of a worst case scenario. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't know what that means. I bought it on a whim. I don't know what a whim is. We'll know more when the smoke clears. Was there a fire? The fact of the matter, you've obviously said, I've been lying and you know the facts. Well, the proof's in the pudding. Well, I had pudding tonight, but I didn't see any proof. We need to get on the same page, maybe the same book. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. Proceed with an abundance of caution. I don't know what that means. So if someone isn't, so on and so forth, or etc., or yada, yada, yada. It's wasted language to me. This is one that gets me. To make a long story short. Sorry, too late. We're watching with bated breath. Don't get it. They did it willy-nilly. Don't understand it. Well, to be honest with you, you've been lying up to this point. Someone says, I can't believe it's already Friday. Really? Did you remember last Friday? There's going to be another Friday coming up. Try to believe it's Friday. It's going to be Christmas every year. Then what frustrates me is when I'm at a ball game with the grandkids or something, and what people say to the batter or to the pitcher. Now think about this. To the batter, get a piece of it. Okay, straighten it out. Put the bat on the ball. Watch it with both eyes. Really? Just make contact. Good eye. Just keep your eye on the ball. Well, that's going to be painful. You foul it. Now get all of it. Be ready. Expect it. Just beat the ball. Hello, ball. Then you got the pitcher. It's just you in the mitt. Really? It's just me in the mitt? We're behind 14-1. You throw a ball, bring it on down, play it smart. You got this. Just pitch right to him. Stay loose. Those things bother me. Just speak plain. Now, I am really ending it because I'm going to give you a few bloopers, Brother Parker, that have been in church bulletins or newsletters, mostly bulletins. The associate pastor unveiled a new tithing campaign slogan last Sunday. I upped my pledge, up yours. The over 60s choir will be disbanded for the summer with thanks of the entire church. A misspelling here, I think. Potluck supper Sunday at 5 p.m. Prayer and medication to follow. Maybe meditation. The church will host an evening of fine dining, super entertainment, and gracious hostility. Bertha Belch is our African missionary and will be speaking at our evening worship service. Come tonight and hear Bertha Belch all the way from Africa. Weight Watchers will meet at 7 p.m. at the Methodist Church. Please use the large double doors at the side entrance. They meant well. Ladies, don't forget the rummage sale. It's a chance to get rid of those things that are not worth keeping around the house. Bring your husband. The class on prophecy has been canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. The low self-esteem support group will meet Thursday at 7 p.m. Please use the back door. Let us join Lisa and David in the celebration of their wedding and bring their happiness to a conclusion. For those of you who have children and don't know it, we have a nursery downstairs. At the evening service tonight, the sermon will be, What is Hell? Come early and listen to our choir practice. Now, birthday girl, a happy birthday to you. It couldn't happen to a nicer person. See, that's one of those phrases that I just mentioned. The only thing that could be better to happen would be if it happened to me and your dad when we turn 71 next year. Shindig, just like this, we'll do a joint, y'all pick up the tab.
Yeah, round of applause for Mr. Tony. All right. I got me a juicy joke, okay? I got it.